Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Fun Problems. Now you may have noticed that unlike a normal episode, you can't see our faces. AJ, what is happening?
Today we're going to show everybody how to use Component.Studio.
This is by very popular demand. A lot of people wanted to know how to use it after listening to our last episode. And then Component.Studio actually reached out to sponsor us. So this is a sponsored episode for full legal disclaimers that we are getting some compensation for making this. But if you listen to our episode, you know that's not why we're doing it. I just love this app so much. I predict, and I think we said this in the episode. Oh, if you want a full debrief, go listen to our Component.Studio episode. I think I said this then. I predict that this has at least doubled the rate in which the speed at which I prototype games. Like, there is nothing else like it.
I think for me, it is closer to 5 times.
Yeah. AJ, do you want to give a brief summary of Component.Studio, or would you like me to?
I can do that. So Component.Studio is a program that has 2 sections of it, basically. On the one section, you're doing the design work where you're creating like the frame of the components that you're going to be building out.
The visuals of what you'd actually print.
Exactly. And then the other is sort of the back end where you have all the data that you're going to be pulling from to create those components. And then you can export it using the same program in order to either do a print and play or to have it on Tabletop Simulator or whatever else you need.
So what we're going to do today is basically to convert AJ to Component.Studio. I did exactly this. I pulled up a video call. I was like, AJ, I'm going to show you how to make a game, and it is going to be so fast that you will immediately start making games of this. And it worked, and it did, and we made that episode. So we're just going to basically do that. I'm going to teach you how to make a game in Component.Studio. And then, rather than going into too much advanced stuff, I'm just going to show you some of my other projects and show some of the like cool, fancy stuff I've done. So, you need to go to Component.Studio. That's the website. It's called Component.Studio 2. I think 3 is about to come out, which JT, the creator, says will make it much easier for him to like implement changes, which I'm very excited for, because as much as I love the software, there are some things I definitely wish would be updated, and they soon will, and updates will be faster and easier. And you do need to pay for this. I think, do we have the ability to give out like free trials or something like that? Am I misremembering?
We have a code, yeah. I'll put that in the description.
Cool. So in the description, you will find a code that if you and a link. Go there, sign up, and you will see. You'll be able to use.
I think it's a discount code, not a free trial, but yeah.
It's worth the investment of trying a month. I promise. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is create a game. You want to name the game. AJ, what's our new game called?
Fun Problems.
Fun
Very creative.
Problems. The game. So when you create a game, you'll be presented with this little menu. As AJ said, there's kind of 2 main parts to it, which is designs and data sets. So the first thing you want to do is create a design. Let's just assume we're using a normal poker size deck. These are all the different components that you can get from Game Crafter. So Game Crafter is a way to print out prototypes, and that is owned by the same company / person, JT owns both, as Component.Studio. And that's actually where Component.Studio started. Did you know this?
Yeah, I did actually, yeah.
Yeah. It was a way of like making it easier for people to prototype games exclusively to print on Game Crafter, which I have done maybe just once or maybe a few times, but I mostly use it for my own prints, and it's worth it. So these are all the different card sizes. These are all the different mats. These are all the different packaging. I've never used that.
Yeah. And one of the nice things too is if you export it from here, you can export it in the correct file format and everything for the Game Crafter. So if you're using the Game Crafter anyway, it sort of saves you a step as well.
So we're gonna make our character cards, because obviously the Fun Problems game has characters. So best practices, I always name everything. I don't want to log in and just find a bunch of untitles. It means that if I revisit the design in 6 months' time, I'm going to get confused. So I'm going to name it, in fact, character cards. I've chosen my poker type, my poker cards. Do I want it portrait or landscape? What do you think, AJ?
Let's do portrait, but just to point it out, you can change the orientation of like all text and icons and everything, so you can kind of use it either way in the design.
And this is cool. Oh, I didn't know about none. I've always been using single. So you can have like a deck of cards all has the same back, or you can make a game where all the cards are double-sided and they're all unique. Or you can just have them be the same on the front and back. Oh man, I didn't know about that either. That's so helpful. Or you can have no back image. I'm learning so much from making this video. So let's just say that let's do
double-sided. Yeah, unique.
Yeah. And then we don't have any data sets, so we're going to create one. You can use multiple designs that are drawing from the same data set. And when we go into some of my other projects later, I'll show you some examples of that. So I could now go in and start editing the card, and this is what that would look like. It's going to have a little loading screen, then you're going to have this menu. However, there's no content. So instead, I'm going to do what I always do, which is go in and actually make the cards. AJ, you and I are obviously characters. Who else have we had on the podcast who's going to be a character in our game?
Jeff Fraser. Alex Warren. And Shannon McDowell.
Alright, so what I did was when we opened up, we just had one row and two columns. Quantity is how many of each one you want to print. So obviously there's going to be more Peter than anything else in the game. Name is a special field that is always going to exist. By default, you'll see it propagates with untitled. Again, I always try to rename those. The name field is kind of special in that you can't put special characters in here. If you do, it sometimes does weird stuff. And you can't change the column type. You actually can't change anything. What that means, I'll explain in a moment. So if you've never done a spreadsheet before, this is not the video for you. We're not going to teach you how this works. But the important thing about this is that every row in this spreadsheet is a different set of information for a design.
So basically in this one, each of these is a card.
So in this example, each one's a card. Thank you. You can have different column types. So I just made a text field called ability. You can have a number type, which we'll call power, and you can have another number, which we'll call defense. And you'll see when they make them at different widths based on what type it is. And also, you can only put numbers in here. It's going to freak out. If I put A in here, it's like, whoa, that's not a number. So worth noting, you don't have to actually do any other type than text. Text fields can take numbers. Anything can take numbers. You never have to do anything other than just text. I like to do them specifically because of my obsessive nature. So there's also color, which is really helpful just visually because, you have to give it a name. Color is really useful because you can see the color. Again, I could just do the hex code in here, but this makes it easier to be like, I think AJ is going to be yellow, and I am going to be blue, and Jeff is going to be red, etc. So if I wanted to, I could have a text field that just had this information, but I like this because you get to see it. AJ, let me know if I'm missing anything or if I'm going into too much detail on some things.
I think it's fine. People can see what you're doing. You're clicking the ellipses to then go to a submenu and pick the color. There's some fancy stuff we're not worrying about. Mostly he's just choosing from the grid. Do you want to do a true false as well?
Yes. True false. Oh, God damn it. I gotta give it a name. True false is the one that I like the least because
just do card type or something for me.
I think we're going to see if they're tall. AJ,
right.
Are you tall?
I am tall.
Am I tall?
Yep.
Long pause there. Is Jeff tall?
No, he's short.
Okay, so we're going to put false in there.
And so is little Alex Horn.
Little Alex Horn, that's true. And then Shannon McDowell.
She's tall.
Okay, and just like the number fields, if you put anything else in here, it's going to not complain. Oh, it was complaining about everything for a while, so we might have just switched off the complain function. Those are the main column types. There's also, actually, no, I'll do images as well, because those are quite helpful. Face. Boop. If I'm doing an absolute bare minimum MVP, I tend not to use image. If it's anything beyond that, I like to do images, just because it makes cards so much more pleasant to play with when there's some kind of image on them. So images, you get to choose from your uploaded images. What uploaded images? Well, that's what this little button here is. You can add folders. So let's do headshots. And then you can actually go in and upload from your computer different. Let's grab our jelly bean headshots because they're quite cool. You guys are getting a nice view of what my computer looks like. Jelly bean headshots. So at Jelly Bean Games, where I work and AJ used to work, we had all kinds of cool little headshots. So there's AJ. I'm going to do Frankie because we don't have one for Shannon. Sorry, it's taking more time than it needs to, but I want to do it. And we don't have one for Alex Horn, so let's say Tom is Alex Horn. Bam! So you can upload your images, and now I've got a little folder here of images. I'm going to come back to these in a moment, so I'm actually going to upload one more folder. So the reason to do folders is just internal sorting. It's not like folders have any kind of superpower, but let's just do an icons folder, and I will demonstrate why that's going to be important later. And I'm just going to grab some icons from a game. AJ, you want to vamp while I find some icons?
Yeah, so a couple little details. He's going to do it in a second, but there's a little button that you can click to turn an image into the ability to use it as an icon. I actually don't know why you would ever not click that button. I feel like it should just be on by
It
default.
slows down the system.
Oh, okay.
Basically, if that was always on, then the system would run slower. So I don't do it when I'm doing backgrounds, for example.
So in order to use them as an icon, first you have to select to allow them to use, like he's doing right now. And then you have to save the name of it that you can see right here, Dark, Council, Combat. You save that name, copy, paste, and then you put it in brackets or in a code that Peter's going to show you in a second. And then you can put that code into the text field of anywhere on the card, and it's going to import that image into that just like that. Very, very simple way to do icons.
So handy. That's probably the feature I use the most.
There's also
Like,
the thing that
I
saved
live
me
off
the
it.
most time. When I say it's
Yes.
5 times as fast, 3 times of it is just fixing the icons.
So, AJ, as we all know, when you spend 2 coins, you get combat. This is a well-known fact about AJ. If I spend a coin, I get Aether. Bet you didn't know that. Jeff just actually gets 2 coins. So I mentioned earlier that the name row is special. See this plus here? If I did that plus in name, I think it would get confused. Like it would be. Actually, I'll show you. I'll do it here, and then I'll show you why that confuses the system. So it'll let me do it here, but then the system will break. Alex Horn, as we all know, is worth 5 coins.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? One thing I've got into the habit of doing is creating a second field for name. So I have to leave the regular name as, it has certain restrictions to it. It also sorts all your cards based off of the alphabetical names in the name field. So that's why I like to have a second one in a lot of my designs called real name. And in real name, I'll put what I want to say on the card. But for instance, let's say that I've got a whole bunch of cards for the shark faction and a whole lot of cards for the octopus faction. I might name all of the cards in the name field shark dash whatever the name is, or octopi, and then whatever the name is. And then in real name, I put what I actually want to call them. So let's say, Peter and me and Jeff are one, and then the other ones are a second one.
Sorry, AJ,
We can
5.
And if Peter does this and then refreshes the page, then you'll see that it's sorted by the names alphabetically in the name column, and separately in the real name, that's what's actually going to show up as Shaza.
So, one advantage of doing what AJ suggests is that you can now have like punctuation here without any chance of it messing up. And actually, I'll show you why that's annoying to do here. Okay. So, as you can see here, we've got some cards, bunch of information. This is a real game that definitely exists.
And you'll see that the code that Peter put in to make the image pull is the greater than, and then the name from the image, and then slash, and then less than sign. That's what you need for that to become an icon.
It's almost it's almost a HTML tag, but it's not, and that catches me out quite a lot.
And what Peter's doing right now is just picking the ellipses, choosing what image he wants for the image file, and
this is where the folders can be helpful, because like I want all of these near each other so that they're easy to grab. Okay, so now we've got 5 cards. We've got 3 of this one. We've got 1 of the rest. They've got a whole bunch of stuff. If we go back into designs, you'll see there's nothing here. That's because in this, it's sort of like MS Publisher is my go-to example. When you used to open up MS Publisher, it had nothing, and you had to start by putting a text field. So, as mentioned earlier, best practices is to label everything. I label every group, I label every layer, just so when I come back to it, it's easier to deal with. I will often use these groups for different things. So, like this one might be if I only have one folder, I will just call it front or back. If I have multiple, I'll be stuff like content and structure, which we did a whole episode on, is genuinely one that I use quite a lot, or background or something like that. And then let's say I have another one where I'm like, this is power and defense.
So the layer group at the bottom is the one that's furthest back visually on the plane, and the things that are at the top are the things that are going to be at the front of the design. So if you have this red wall at the top, anything else you make is going behind it, you won't be able to see any of it.
Yeah. So there are a bunch of different things you make here. I've used all of them except for orb. I don't know if I've ever used orb or note. I don't even know what note is. these are pretty basic. Text is obviously text, and we'll be using a bunch of that. Table is kind of annoying. Don't use table. Polygon just lets you make any shape. So when you make a polygon, you can choose how many sides it has. So you can make little triangles, you can make pentagons, you can make whatever you like. I use this one quite a lot. Sometimes it's easier, honestly, just to import some shapes, but if you want different colored shapes or you want different things, I use that one quite a lot. Orb? I don't know what this is. You ever used orb?
It's just a polygon with no sides, right? It's the exact thing.
It's just a circle. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I have used that, I lie. I didn't know it was called orb. Note I've never used. Any idea what this does?
I've never used this before in my life. I think this is internally. Like, it doesn't actually show up on the design.
Huh. It's cool. It's like noting your...
like why you put
code,
something there or whatever.
Yeah. Well, there we go. We learned something today. And then image and text are the two that I'm going to use the most. Box is like polygon, but it's always square. And that's what we're going to use now. So... Again, if I was just like, actually, let's do this. Let's say I had a strict deadline. I've got my playtest starting in 10 minutes. I just want these cards to be as basic as possible. This is how I would do that. So this is our MVP version. As mentioned earlier, you can have multiple designs draw from the same data set. So let's do that. So I am racing to a playtest. It's starting in 5 minutes, and I need to playtest this game. I have all that data from whatever reason. I already made that up while I was lying in bed last night, made that on my phone. But to actually make the card, I have very little time. Here's what I do. I always label my groups because it takes 2 seconds and it'll save me hours later. I will do this. I don't know how AJ does it, but I'm going to show you how I do it. So this is a text field. It comes with a default. This is some text. The way that I do this is I just put it all into one text field and I let it sort itself out from there. So we've got
sorry, just to slow you down for 1 second here.
Yeah, please.
The row data button at the top is like a shortcut to exactly this card in your data set. Super handy.
Yeah.
So these are all the fields that we just filled in.
Yeah, this is the bug I was talking about earlier. I'm going to change that, and now it's like, whoa, I don't know what any of those symbols are. I am so confused. So remember earlier that was like a bunch of different shapes. As soon as you edit it in here, it freaks out and you can't revert it here. You have to go back into the spreadsheet. It's a whole nightmare. I don't bother. I just try not to put special characters in that field. Okay, so the way that this software works is you can call these fields basically. So this one's called name. So this is a special code that you will very quickly get used to writing. That is going to take whatever this name was. So it's called all lowercase name. So you put curly bracket, row dot name, and it's going to pull that. Now, we actually don't want name. We want real name. And this is case sensitive. If I just put a lowercase n, for example, it's going to be like, well, nothing like that exists. So you do have to, I try to be consistent with my casing. I'm really not very good at it. And then, so this text field just has exactly that. So then I could write is cool, and you can see it's treating is cool as text because it's not in curly brackets, and anything in curly brackets, it's drawing the data from that field. So this is like how a data merge works in InDesign and Photoshop, but it's all in the one piece of software. And I could be like, what a fool I am. Shazza only has one Z. I can edit this, and it'll edit that spreadsheet for me. I think this is the moment, AJ, where you were like, okay, I'm immediately using Component.Studio and nothing else in my entire life.
Yep. Never look back.
It's incredible. So then I can be like, what's the ability? Is that how I did that? Yep.
And to clarify, Peter's right now typing out the code, but there's an ellipses on the right that you can click and access the row data, and that'll give you the short code. So if he just clicks...
Yeah, what was the next one? That's a bad one. Let's do power and defense. So if I click that, then it's moved power to my spreadsheet. Like I said, I've been doing this. I live on this program. But if you're not as familiar with the specifics of it, it's very easy to do this. So now, you know what? I actually want the power and defense to be the first thing. So I'm going to put that right here. I'm going to put some punctuation between it. Bam! We got power, defense, we got name, we got the ability. That's all I really need, but if I have another second... Oh, so yeah, this is the MVP. So in order to play test the game, like literal first time to the table, this is all I need. You can see that because we set up those coins as able to be inline text, they exist. This is mine. I do a coin for an Aether, etc., etc. Now you might say, okay, that's really dumb and stupid, Peter. Why are you so dumb and stupid? That should be much bigger. So what we can do is we can use do you ever do this, AJ? The HTML tags. So H1 is HTML for header. So that's going to make that bigger. Now you can see it hasn't made this much bigger. What I always do, this is like every time I start a prototype, is I go into styles, I create a new style, I call it H0, and I make it absolutely massive. Every single time. And I really wish that like there was some way I could make this a default thing in every time I make a new one, because I always do this. Bam! Now my ability is really big. So you can see we've got, this is a problem, AJ. What are we going to do?
I have no idea. It's too big. It doesn't fit. If only there was some sort of option to limit. Oh wait.
So this is going to take the text and make it fit on the card. Now it's going to resize everything proportionally. So this is maybe why it's not a good idea to do H0. But if I make that H1, it'll make it at least a little bit bigger. No, too ridiculous. You can actually go in and edit these tags. So what did I make H0? That was 300. I'm going to make H1 half of that, which is 150.
So this is just adding the details of the fonts and then choosing which font you want.
Oh, why didn't that work? Why didn't that work? That's very weird.
And again, Peter's typing in exactly what he wants in the text here. If you see text formatting default styles, it's currently selected body. You can click the drop down and just pick which one. So if you're just doing something quick and simple, that's a nice easy way of doing it without having to get into anything too fancy.
Alright, I'm abandoning the H1 because it's not working for some reason. Instead, we're just going to make everything this big text and then fit to size. So now as we go through the cards, they will all fit the card really nicely, and you can see all the information.
Now, this is unlike a lot of other programs where you have text boxes. It doesn't work the same way as those ones, right?
What do you mean? Oh, like I can't click on it and edit?
Yeah, you can't like click and drag the size of it and like adjust how big it is and like where the text is maxed out at. There's no
Correct,
way to
yes.
hard limit that.
There are some ways, but yeah, generally speaking, you're right. It's not a what you see. It's not a point and click kind of interface. Okay, so if I got my playtest happening in 2 minutes, cool. This is more than good enough. This is better looking than entire published games I've played. Now we have all of our cards, and I can quickly export them using this export button to, and this is the other reason my tabletop simulator is so amazing. If I'm going to a physical playtest, I can print it as a PDF. If I'm playing on TTS, I can export it as a TTS. I can do both. Should I do it, or should we keep teaching?
No,
actually, this will be super fast.
Yeah, sure. That's the point.
So you do have to keep this tab open. If you go to another tab, it'll mess up a lot of the time. So you have to have this open. I will often just move it into a window and put it off to the side. It doesn't have to be like front of your computer, but it does have to be open for it to work. And then down here you can see it's told me that the PNP is ready and that the TTS is ready. That's how fast it is. This is now a fully printable... Whoa, that's not too far. This, I can print, I can sleeve, I can play with just the paper, I can cut. It's ready to go. This is a playable prototype. Remember earlier we made 3 of the Peter C. Hayward card? Well, now there's 3 of them. 1 of everything else. What we saw earlier is what you got. The TTS, meanwhile, has exported it into TTS's format. Why is that so blurry? There we go. So I can save this, or I can just copy the URL. I can just copy this URL here, which I've got my little thing, and go into TTS and just paste that straight in and start playtesting without having to download or upload anything. It's amazing.
It is amazing. One small caveat is you should go back and we need to adjust the expiration date on this. Probably not for the MVP, but...
I've never done that. How do you do that?
So go to your exports. This is only after you export it, you can adjust it.
Okay, I didn't know about this at all. I'm learning things today. I think you've told me this before. Oh, look at this.
Yep. So this is when it expires. If you upload to TTS and you don't change this, then in 2 weeks, it won't work anymore. The images will just be black. I think they're actually fine for you, but for other people playing online, it will be black for them. But if you just adjust it to a quick click over to 1 decade from now, then it won't expire until another decade.
I also like to version, so I will try to download these. I sometimes forget, but I like to have a copy on my computer so I can look back. That is, it's such a good way of getting an MVP out. So that's our very, very quick and dirty. Like, I always just put it all in one text field. That's why I use the that's why I put stuff in line. It's just like text field that has this, has this, has this, has this, and then I'm not even bothering with that. But let's say we want a bit of a fancier one. So we're destroying our MVP. Yep, don't cry. It's okay. And we're going to make a slightly nicer one. So as we saw here, we've already put out a structure. I like to use little boxes to kind of split up my grid a bit. And so we're going to learn how to resize stuff. So by default, when you add a box, it fills up the entire grid. By default, when you add a text box, it doesn't actually fill up the whole thing. If you click this, you can see where it's coming to. So it's coming to the safe line. So this is where this text box is just naturally built to. We will come back to you in a moment. But for now, this box, it fills up the whole thing. I want, let's say, down to about 300. These little handy things on the side will tell you. So I want it to be about 300 high. Bam! I got a little top thing here. So this is where the top left of it is to the left, where the top left of it is to the top. How wide it is, and you can set by default. It'll, like I said, it'll be the whole width, but you can change this to whatever you like. I could change this to 2 if I wanted to, and now it's just this tiny little sliver off the side where we can't see it. I could make it 2000. And now, again, we can't see it, but it's going way off this side. You can set this to whatever you like. I do this so much that I've, again, memorized a lot of these codes. But as AJ mentioned earlier, oops, that was height.
Yeah, you don't have to. Like, I haven't memorized any of these codes. I actually have usually a separate Google Sheet open that just has like copy paste for all the most common icons that I use in my designs. And then I just copy paste from those, upload the same icons between projects. Easy enough.
So rather memorizing width, I can just click width. It's copied it to the clipboard, and I can paste it in there. And then you can either change the color manually. So I could. Oh, you know what we could do? So okay, firstly, you can change the color manually. Boop. Let's say I wanted all the headers to be yellow, or we could now reference that color field that we made earlier. So if you'll recall, one of the rows we made was called color. I'm not going to go through everything in exhaustive detail. Hopefully, just from seeing it, you can see, and if not, it's pretty intuitive, I think, a lot of it. But in this case, this is the row that cares about the color. So now, again, it's drawing from that row data. I didn't even mean to make Shannon pink. Shannon is a friend of ours. She has pink hair, so that's why it's coincidentally funny. So in the color row, it's got a little hex code, so it's copied that over. One handy thing about this is that it also accepts all of the basic colors. I don't have memorized, but it'll do a lot of them. So let's just do pink. Let's do peach. I think peach will be nicer. Nope, doesn't take peach. So sometimes I use the hex code, sometimes I just use the colors, and it's actually converting that into a hex code. So you can see here what the system is reading that as, in case you do want to adjust it very slightly. You can start from there. Okay, so that's our nice box, and again, I like to have these labeled, so I'm going to say that's the title box, and we're going to go in here. So I want the top of every card to have the real name, and this is if I'm making a prototype that it's gone through a few plays now, and I know it's fun enough to be worth spending the time on. So text formatting is where you'll spend a lot of your time. There's all the bodies that you set up earlier, so I can make it H0. I can just make it absolutely huge if I wanted to. Make it H1, which is big but not as big. I can align it left, I can align it right. I can align it bottom. I use this a lot. I don't know if you use this one, AJ.
Not usually.
I love it. You can make it middle, whatever you like. I almost always use fit to size. I live off fit to size. And then this one's really handy. Actually, I'll get into that in a moment when we get into those. So,
do you
as
want
you
to
can
explain
see,
fit to size? You didn't. You said like I use it a lot, but you didn't say what to.
I thought I guess I didn't explain it earlier. So fit to size. I thought we went through this earlier. Earlier when stuff was going off the page, fit to size just means that your text will fit in here. Now, it's not perfect. If I make H1 1500, it's going to be like. Oh, it's freaking out. Yeah, it's kind of like, dude, there's a limit. We're going to shrink it, but not too much. So there is a limit to how much it will shrink things, but unless you've gone absolutely ridiculous, it's very rare that you'll run into that. So fit to size means that this text is now fitting into this box. And as we saw earlier, this box is going right from the top to the bottom. I don't want that. I want it to end here. So I'm going to go ahead and change the top of this. This ends at 300. This one starts at 75. If you hover over, you can see what this code is turning into a number. So I want the height to be 225. Oop, no, that's the top. I want the height to be 225. And now each of these names will nicely fit into this box. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. And again, I'm always going to label my layers. Another bit of content is our beautiful pictures. So in here, you can actually manually set it to a picture. This is going to mean that everyone is Jeff, which is a wonderful world that I wouldn't mind living in, but that's not what we're doing today. Or, just like earlier, you can reference the row. So this is the reason that you would want to use that image row. Our one is called face. So I'm just going to say row.face. And now we're still on Jeff for Jeff, but as we go through them, you can see our beautiful smiling faces. These are all too big, so let's resize them. I want it to start where the text box finishes, so that's 300, and you can either make images go to the width or to the height, and this is actually a thing that I don't love about this, and I'll go through why that is in a second. But let's say I want this to take up like a big chunk of the card, and I want it to be centered. AJ, do you ever use center on?
I never use center on.
Okay. What center on does is it just moves it to the very center of the whole thing. So this means that now they're all going to be nicely centered. I don't want it at the center. I want it a little bit higher. So I'm going to leave the x coordinate centered, but I'm going to change this to be 300. And now it's always going to be centered no matter how wide it is. And actually, I'll upload an example of... Actually, maybe I can use one of these now. I will upload something really wide to show why this is important. So this fighter monster icon is much wider than the rest. This is scaling to the height. I can either choose it to scale it to the height or the width. I've chosen it to scale to the height, which means that this, which is much wider than the rest, is going to be huge. If this was just like perfectly aligned so that the rest fit where it was, so if instead of being centered it was... let's go to...
This is great. I'm going to use this now.
It's so useful. So this is what's left here about like... So these little numbers at the top left here that you can see, I use these a lot. The left here is about, 280? So if I was like, okay, I want them all to be about 280. Great, great, great. Oops. Nope, what did I call that row? Face. So look, these all look pretty centered, right? This is great. However, what you don't know about Shannon is that she actually looks like a fight monster icon. Shannon's now way over to the side. So even though these are perfect, as soon as you have something that's not the right width, it messes the whole thing up. And so that's why center is really, really helpful. I actually don't know the code off by heart. I just always use this and then change one of them manually. Mm-hmm. Peter, you say, this could be really easily solved if instead of caring about the height, we were caring about the width. So let's change it to that, proportional to width. Now they're all the same width, but oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. This is one of my least favorite features of Component.Studio, is that there's no way of being like, look, just draw a box and make it fit that. Or if there is, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can stretch it to fill. We don't want that. Mm-hmm. So I tend to like either do what I just showed you, or just as often I will go in and add little white boxes, like white space on either side. Okay, so this one's going to be 300. We're going to center it to the design, except for the top is 300. And now, even Shannon with her fight monster icon is perfectly centered on the page. And because we're relying on the height, they're all going to be really consistent. Isn't that wonderful? Mm-hmm. Okay, what else have we got in our content? We've got an ability. So earlier on, I just put them all in the same one. I like the customizable of like having them all have their own little boxes. It means I can move elements separate to each other. We want this to be about 800 at the height.
Do you want to showcase the move instead of the...
Yeah. So instead of typing in numbers, I tend to type in numbers because this is kind of buggy for me. You can just position it wherever you like.
This is kind of weird. When you click the text or icon or whatever you want to move, it like jumps up a ways for no reason.
I think it's treating it as if it's the center. Nope, no idea. It's super annoying. Fortunately, I have multiple monitors, so I'm able to use it. But I do tend to just rely on like, what's the coordinates here? I'll type those in.
Mm-hmm.
Rotation is also hella buggy. It's like it's rotating around some anchor point I don't understand.
I think it's actually unusable to use the quick rotate button. That one I always put in degrees. Yeah. Like, when do you not have to do like 90-degree increments? You know?
Yeah, yeah. We haven't gotten to that yet. Okay, so yeah, let's quickly put this in. So we've got the row dot ability. Wow, Shannon's a little bit overpowered if you ask me. Good thing she only has one Z. Now, if I at this point I'm like, okay, I'm going to make it bigger, I'm going to fit to size. Oh no, it's not fitting to size. That's because I didn't actually resize the box. So I moved it down, but now it's, as you can see, it's going off the bottom of the page. So I want to make the height, what's that, about 700 plus that, about 350. And now it's resized everything really nicely. So we have all of our cards. This is looking great. We've got a nice image. We've got nice stuff. Now, you'll notice that this text is kind of like dwarfing these in a ratio I don't like. This is a relatively recent feature, and it's thanks to Jeff Fraser, who submitted a request, and JT applied it, which is you can change the icon scale. So this is how big the inline icons are compared to the text. I almost always just go straight to 200.
Yeah, same.
It just feels right to me. Again, if I could set a default setting, I would. And you know what? I want this text to be... No, I want it to be left align. Let's go left align. That looks better. Let's say you've got a busy image in the background, which I will quickly put here in structure. As we all know, when we're playing this game, what we really want in the background is a giant picture of Frankie's face. That's what we're here for. That's what the game's about. We're going to center it on the full design. We're going to make it twice as big. This is what our cards look like. As AJ mentioned earlier, the order of these is the order in which they'll render. So the title box is currently is on the wrong side of this background. So I'm just going to click this little 2 arrows. You can move up, you can move down, and you can move to other groups. And this is the reason why I always name my groups. I don't want to be like quickly trying to move something and then being like, oh crap, what's it? Okay, this one's this one. I just want to be able to at a glance see exactly what it is. So I'm going to move it to the bottom. Okay, AJ, this text is a little hard to read, wouldn't you say? That's what I would say.
I would say.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this handy effects thing. I'm going to say there is an outline to this text. And as we all know from graphic design school, black text with a white background or with a white outline, or white text with a black background is readable no matter what the background is. Whew, that was very confusingly said. Do you want to rephrase that better?
No, it's one take. You did it. We're moving on.
So now, no matter what is in the background, this could be different per card, we can always read these beautiful, beautiful icons. And you know what? These faces are starting to blend in a little bit. Let's fix that as well. But let's not use an outline. Let's use another handy feature, which is a glow. I love me a glow. Bam! Look at that. Let's get that glow going out even further. And let's make it a little bit weaker. So now I'm nicely highlighted on the background. Doesn't this look nice? Look at that. Look at that handsome boy. Look at him. Okay, so this is all great. I've got my thing. Now, we made some other things here. So we've used our ability, we've used our color. Oh, we'd want power and defense. I'm not going to bother doing it, but you could, put the number in a slash and put the other number, etc., etc. What we haven't used is how tall it is. Now, we have a front and a back here, and we've set it up so the front and the back are unique. I actually want all of this stuff to be on the back as well. So I'm just going to go copy to back, copy to back, copy to back. And then when we go on the back, we'll see, boop, it's all the same stuff, exactly what it was. But, as you know from playing fun problems, only tall characters have their ability on both sides. So I'm going to go into ability, and because everything needs to be uniquely named, this on the back they've all had a 2 appended to them, but it's still pretty clear what they are. I'm going to say this is not... I could say, look, they're just all not visible on the back. Bam. Done. But instead, I'm going to say whether or not this is visible is conditional on whether or not the character is tall. So now, AJ has it, Shannon has it, but Alex and Jeff do not, and I have it. This is the secret sauce. This is the magic
Huge.
using this. I'm gonna show you another one which is really helpful. AJ, I don't know if you know this one. Let's
Is
say
the like stacking icons thing?
oh, I don't know what that is. Maybe instead of if it's tall, I could say, you know what? They only get ability on the back if they're not tall. And now it's going to check that result and exactly reverse it. You might think, well, why not just set them to true and false? Sometimes you really need something to be true for some things and false for another. So not is a really handy little code. I have a little, like AJ, I have a little cheat sheet, but it's for all the programming stuff. So this is not row.tall. To demonstrate this next bit, I need to go back into our spreadsheet. You can actually jump straight back to the spreadsheet by clicking here, and it'll take you immediately back into the spreadsheet. And what you didn't know, AJ, is that not all characters have power. So little Alex Horn is obviously way over OP with that defense. And AJ, sorry, you got no power. You just got no power in this relationship, but you got the double coin for combat ability, so I think that makes it worthwhile. If you ever go in and edit this in a separate tab as I have here, when you come back, this will not be updated and you have to click reload dataset or just refresh the whole page. Anything you edit here will be fine, but if you've got in a separate tab, you have to manually refresh that dataset or else you're just going to be missing information. So now we've got some characters have power and some characters don't. What I didn't tell you, AJ, is that on the back, you only get your ability if you are tall and you have power. I am tall with power, so I get my ability. Jeff is not tall, so he doesn't get it. You are tall but don't have power, so you don't get it as well.
That is fancy.
It's so helpful. Like I said, later on we'll go through some projects and I'll show you how I use this. But like, oh my goodness, this by itself. And you can combine things. You can be like, oops. So only if it's tall and doesn't have power. And now you can see that AJ is the only one because he's the only one who is tall with no power. So good. And you can hover over it and be like, wait, why is this working? Why is this not? I'm going to show you one more really tricky thing, and then I think we should start thinking about wrapping up. What's a good way to do this? Okay, I need to edit the data set again. Just like in Radlands, each one of these character cards has a thing that you can discard it for, as we all know. What can you discard it for? Well, you can discard Shannon for a coin. You can discard Little Alex Horn for a coin. You can discard me for an Aether. You can discard AJ for a combat. And what else did we even have here? You can discard Jeff for a chevron. You'll notice that all of these fields are just the name of a image and nothing else. That's all I've put in here. And this is kind of like advanced stuff. This is not a thing that you need to use it. I'm just showing off some tricks, and then we'll go through some other projects and you can see how I've used these. So I want it's only in the face that you do this. So I want all of these names to be a little bit to the left, and because I've labeled everything, it's really easy for me to find my columns, my different layers. So the width is now not going to go all the way along because I've got a little gap here. So the width's only going to be 600 now. And because we're using fit to text, it's all refreshing and these all still look amazing. God, I love this software so much. We are going to make do I want a new layer? No. Let's just do it in our content layer. We're going to make a new image, and this is our discard. Earlier, we were fully referencing the column because it was an image column. And another reason to do an image column is it makes it really easy to swap them out here. This is just a bit of text. This doesn't have anything in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the code of the language. So let's say I just wanted to use that one exactly. Bam. Actually, I'll even use that to be the one that I use to position it. I use this move thing a lot when I'm doing images. I find it much easier than with text. And you know what, AJ? That's a little hard to see. I'm going to add a little glow. Boop. Okay, but they're not all coins. They're going to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say this is images plus... actually, no. How am I going to do this? And then it's going to be row discard URL. It always takes me a few attempts to get this. And so once I get it, I actually have it saved. So now this is saying, hey, the image that we're going to use is the discard row. So as we flip through them, they've all updated to what I put in that text. Have you ever done that, AJ?
No, that's real fancy.
It's amazing. Now, this is the fiddly part, but literally, like, write this down right now, copy it into the little spreadsheet. Once you have this, I use this all the time. Okay, is there anything else that you want to show off before we go through some of my projects? Any other vital parts of the software?
I'm not sure it's vital, but there's something you mentioned that I don't know how to do. We mentioned this on air when we were talking about Component.Studio. You were saying when you have a Euro game, like say Splendor, and it's like, here's the different possible gems that could cost something.
Yep.
If one of those is missing, instead of there just being a gap between them, it like shimmies up. How do you do that?
Great. Yep. So, you know what? I'm going to... What's the best way to do this? I'm just going to go in and edit the data set, just because that's going to be the easiest way to do it. So, as we all know, they all have a discard. Some of them actually have multiple discards, and we're just going to use true false here. So, let's do an Aether column, and let's do a chevron column. Oops, that was meant to be a true or false. So the obvious way to do this would be to like type it all in the way that we were doing earlier. So I could do coin slash and then new line and then Aether slash and then new line and then chevron slash. Make that into a text field and it'll put those three in order. That's absolutely fine. That's a viable way to do it. We're going to do it a slightly fiddlier way, and when I go through my projects later, I'll show you why we're doing it this way. So let's say we always want Aether at the top if they have it, and then we always want chevron second if they have it, and then we always want their custom thing next. But we, like you said, we don't want ugly gaps. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to make this a number one. Oh, I'm so excited. Because you don't just get one chevron, AJ. Obviously, you can get anywhere between 0 and 2. Okay, so I said that we always want to show Aether, then we want to show chevron, then we want to show what their custom was, and we want them in a little row. This is where I would absolutely create a new one, create a new group, because like once you have multiple kind of fiddly things interacting, I want them siloed off by themselves where they're not going to, where I can just deal with them and them alone. So this is discard bonuses, and I'm going to move this discard bonus. I want to move it to discard bonuses. Okay, so I want a... It was either true or false with Aether, wasn't it? So I want Aether here. Aether. I want this to be dependent on the row that was called Aether. And I want it to be a reasonable size. So let's grab one that is a good size. This is going to take a moment, so hopefully it's interesting enough that you're not sitting here being like, get to the point. Get to the monkey. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to turn off the glow that I have here. Oh wait, does this work? No, I'm not. I'm going to turn on a glow for this Aether. And the order, when you're doing something like this is one of the fiddlier things, and it's absolutely worth going through. But this is pretty advanced stuff. When you're doing this kind of thing, the order really matters. So you need the eighth, because I think this program, I can never remember if it generates from bottom to top or top to bottom, but we're gonna have these things referencing each other. So the position of the discard is not going to be 68. Oh, actually, no, sorry, we need the chevrons as well. And I'm going to do chevrons as text, and I'll explain why in a second. Okay, this is going to be a lot of me typing boring stuff. So if there's anything you want to chat about, AJ.
Sure. So when we're done this and we post it up and everything, I'm sure JT is going to have a few other things that he wants to say, and especially like as Component.Studio 3 comes out and that kind of thing, there might be some comments or amendments that need to be made. So we'll send this to JT. Hopefully JT will post a comment saying any additional information he wants you to know, and we'll pin that comment to the video, and JDT can just keep adding to that as the program changes or as there's other things that he wants you guys to know about. In terms of questions, if you have any questions about what you've seen, please don't spam us with emails asking us tech support on Component.Studio.
Oh, yeah.
We do not build it.
We
Please
also
ask.
do not have time for that.
Yes.
Well, actually, that relates directly into the next thing I was going to say, which is I can't remember the bit of code I need. So I'm going to click on documentation. And documentation is going to take me to this full guide. And you can search the guide. Right now, when you search, it searches 1 and 2, which is really annoying, but still worth it. Because I need to remember what the repeat function is, because I'm not a programmer. Okay, so it's repeat string number. Again, I don't have any of these memorized. You saw me quickly go and find that. This is all stuff that I've built up over... How long have I been using this now? Like over a year easily. Probably about a year and a half. So I need this repeat function because the way I'm going to do Aether is, you remember earlier I said that there's either 1, 2, or 3? I've done this as a... not Aether, sorry. The way I've done chevrons, because there's 1, 2, or 3, is I've done this as a text field. And I'm going to use this repeat function. Anytime you use a function, it has to be in these curly brackets. I'm going to repeat chevrons equal to the chevron row. Nope. I forgot my inverted commas. So a bit of trial and error with this kind of stuff. And let's have a space between them. So now, as you can see here, I'm just going to hide the overlay for now. As you can see here, Shannon has 2 chevrons. So it's drawn out 2 chevrons. Alex has 1 chevron. I have no chevrons. Jeff has only the big chevron. Does this make sense? Am I going too fast?
Yeah, keep going. Keep. See if it all hangs together.
So the 3 things that we've done here is we've done... Who's someone who has all of them? I want someone who has a discard, Aether, and a chevron. So you, AJ, have discard, Aether, and chevron. And we want them to be in order. Aether, then chevrons, then your discard. What I'm going to do, and this is from memory, so I might mess this up, is I'm going to set the chevron's height to be the bottom of the Aether image, which I need to remember how to do. Here we go. Layer bottom name. So again, I haven't memorized any of this. I'm just typing it in. So that layer is called Aether. And it's freaking out because it generates stuff from top to bottom. So I'm going to move Aether up. Oh, no, it's because it's freaking out because I've done a double curly brackets. No, still not working. There we go. Okay, so it generates bottom to top. So it generates whatever's at the back and then goes forward from there. So what this has done is it said, hey, there's Aether here, and the text box containing chevrons is below the Aether. So if we go forward until we find someone who doesn't have Aether, you'll see it's put it right at the top. Then we're going to do the same thing with the discard. We're going to say, discard, you are going to go to the bottom of the chevron row. So now, no matter what we have, no matter what combination, they are arranged in that order. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so let's have you say it one more time cleanly. What is the order that they have to go in the layer group?
If there is an Aether, if the Aether row is true, I want an image of an Aether. Then, if there is a chevron below that, I want the chevrons, and there might be 1, there might be 2, there's variable amounts. Then, below that, we always want the discard item. So what we've done here is we've said, put them in that order. Aether is actually a really bad one to use. Let's just swap out that image for the build icon, because we're not using that elsewhere. So now it's always going to go build chevrons Aether. Build, there's no chevrons, Aether. There's no build or chevrons. Oh fuck, I've done, yeah, sorry, pardon my language. Chevron is also a bad example of I've reused stuff too much. Let's do council. Okay, take 3. It's always going to go in this order. Aether, council, discard thing, right? So this one goes council, discard thing, because there is no Aether. This one goes council, discard thing, because there is no Aether. This one goes Oh yeah, yeah. Build, sorry, build, and then my discard thing, and then you go build, council, discard thing. So they're always going in that order. Now, right now, there's this horrible thing where they're actually popping up too high. There is a very easy way to fix that. You just make a little box. You fill it at, I think 0% opacity should do. You make it maybe like 2 by 2, and you position it where you want it, which in this case is, what's that, 687 by 73. And then you direct everything to that. So you say, Aether, you are always going to be, your top is always going to be the previous layer. That's a function in here. It's layer bottom. And then instead of a name, you put $previous. And again, this is all in the documentation. This is just a really rough and dirty way of showing it.
This is also like the most advanced thing that you don't need to do unless you want to get real fancy.
Yeah. Correct. I think it's worth doing just to show off how the thing works. So now I'm going to make everything reference the previous layer. And that means that even if there's nothing else there, they're all in the same spot. Those councils are obviously ridiculously tiny, but we know how to fix that. We're going to make them 200 times bigger. Bam. You see how it works?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's obviously very complex and ugly. Why would you do that? Well, let's have a look at some of my... Because I did offer that alternative, which is you can just like type them one after another in the text form. A, I didn't know about that at the time, but B, it means you can do kind of more fancy stuff. Let's have a look at Baba Yaga. Let's have a look at a spell card. In Baba Yaga, my worker placement card drafting game, spells have variable costs. So they can cost teeth, they can cost skulls, or they can cost neither, or they can cost herbs, or they can cost all three. By using that stacking technique, I've made this little box always expand out to cover everything. So this one just has 2 of them, and they're always in the same order. And rather than do what a lot of prototypes do, which would be like have, 2, 2, 0, or whatever, in the costs here, you see I've got the icons, I've got the costs, I've got that previous layer thing I was talking about. Dollar is what herbs used to be called. And so I just really like the aesthetics of how this stacks the different elements and how it always expands this box to match it. And once I learned how to do it, like you saw me do a very rough and dirty version of it, it's not that hard. Like it's a lot of little bitsy bit things. It's a little programmy, but I think that the look of it is absolutely worth it. I want to show off a few other things about this game. One is that all of these, like, here's what you get. This is all just made of that. This is the game where I discovered that whole thing of like just putting them in as inline icons. So there is some pretty advanced abilities in here. This one is you get 6 and then your neighbors get another 3. That's all done with that little text inline thing. It's just... This is a card that you discard. I've really gone ham with that little text inline thing, and it just means that I can iterate really fast. In the past, I used to make them in Photoshop, import them, make them images, bring them in. Now I can be like, you know what? That's too expensive. That actually needs to be 1 fewer card. Where is it? Oh, this one is an image. That's a bad example. But it's very easy to iterate. Like this one is steal 3 herbs. No, you know what? That's going to be steal 1 herb. Bam. I've just changed the entire card with a single keystroke, not having to go in and adjust it. I use... Let me show... that other trick I showed you where you can just type the word in and it'll automatically swap it out. I've done that with my book game that I talk about on the podcast quite a lot, Mightier Than the Sword, with the books. So in this game, you've got a whole bunch of different... when you place a bookmark, you get a special thing. You can get... Oh, this is going to take a while to load. This is a chunky one. But when you place a bookmark, you can either get an extra action, which is a circle. You can get extra meeple, or you can take a book, basically. If I can find... There we go. Take a book. And so the way we did that is we just said, like, look, what's in that spot? Book. What's in that spot? Plus character. What's in that spot? these used to be cubes, which says cube. And then I use that whole system I mentioned earlier. I think I actually made it more complex than that. And I used an if then system. So I said, yeah, I've got a lot of if statements in here. Again, I've got a little Google Docs of all the different like programming stuff I know how to do. And so this is a whole bunch of if this then that statements, but it just lets me like really be flexible. And when I'm editing cards, I don't want to be like going in and moving stuff around. I just want to say like, you know what, this is not book anymore. This is plus character or whatever. In this game, you have, when you get a power, you can activate the power anywhere between 1 and 3 times. So that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 2. And this is like this is out on the board, but you'll also get a title card. And I mentioned earlier that you can have multiple designs pulling from the same database. So my data set for books is huge. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Many rows and columns. Me and my co-designer Matt just sort of constantly editing this and constantly making changes. Jeff Fraser also uses Component.Studio. He hates this editor. He hates it. He exclusively works in Google Docs and just has it imported. I don't like that as much. I like working in here because I like the direct control, but I can definitely, like, if like Jeff, you hate this interface, sure, absolutely use this. You can also import your CSVs. Have you used import image folder?
Nope.
So let's say you want to make a deck, like let's say you have 50 images. Actually, I can really quickly show you. Actually, let me pause that. I'm gonna finish my one point, then I'll go to the other one, and then I think we'll call it a day. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a massive data set with all kinds of different stuff. I have 2 different designs pulling from this. So I have the ones that I was just showing you with the bookmarks. Once you've collected a book, it doesn't matter what bookmarks it has anymore. So the title pages, which is like the little token, the card that you get to represent the book, this doesn't even list those bookmarks. So they're useful for one side of this, but not the other. Oh, that is hideous. Let's grab and then I mentioned some of them can be used twice. So this is one that can be used twice. Some of them only once, some of them 3 times. What I've done is I've used that repeat function that I talked about earlier. So activations, I've said repeat the page, the number of times that you activated it. And then I wanted these little icons on each of the activations. This is just purely thematic. I like doing this kind of thing. So what I did was I made another text thing called verb icons. And this is actually a separate layer that I've just spaced it out so it perfectly aligns. And then this is the exact same code. So this is going to say repeat it that many times. So they're both drawing from the activation. This one cares about, you know, what the verb icon is, in this case balloon. Yeah, it's just so helpful to be able to like do all these kind of nifty little things. Okay, the last thing I'll show you is what I just mentioned, which is the image folder import. It's really helpful in very specific circumstances, and otherwise you will never use it. So I'm going to go back to our fun problems design. AJ, we need a set of cards that is just our faces. Don't you agree?
Strongly.
So we're going to make a just faces data set. Now I could go in and manually just make the rows and make each of them, you know, add the image column, each of them our face. But if I've got 100 images, that's a nightmare. So instead, I want to just import everything in the headshots folder. And now the name of each card is the name of the image, and it's already pre-filled the image. Again, this looks so basic, but I've got a game called French Toast, which has 240 cards, each of which just need to be named for the image and show the image. Nothing else. That's 100% what they are. I can just set this up, and immediately I have 240 rows with all the... Oh, it's so helpful in very specific circumstances.
Yeah, but it's super useful being able to have multiple designs pulling from the same data set. Like sometimes you'll use different things from the cards on a board, or you'll have 2 sets of cards and they'll reference each other, or all sorts of different things.
My number one complaint is that the mini deck is not the same size as the mini sleeves I use. So when I print it, I then have to retrim everything. Okay, AJ, while I quickly demonstrate the power of faces, anything that I missed or anything that you really think we should mention?
I think we're pretty good.
Okay, so let me just show you. So now I can just be like, I want this to have the image, boop, and let's center it because that's such a handy little feature. And I went, the thing I did earlier where I like referenced another row, you can do that with everything. You can have like the height reference the previous row's width. You can have it like reference anything that you have as long as it's in a row below it. It's just incredible. I'll finish this thought and then we'll wrap. So I want all of these to be labeled. So I want to have the name row. And for now, we'll pretend, yes, that's perfect. I exactly wanted it with no spacing. Let's give it a nice little outline, because even though this is a rough example, I'm still a perfectionist. And I want it centered. But, AJ, I don't want it to be all kind of upset, like big letters and little letters. That's the worst. Who would ever want that? What if instead we made it all uppercase? Woo! Have you done this?
I have not, no.
So helpful. Oh, that didn't work. So the little inverted commas are to say, like, use it exactly as it appears. And that's why if I wanted to say row name, I'd put inverted commas. So now they're all in caps. Woo! And they're going to fit the size, so they just go off the edge. Woo! Anyway, that was a little over an hour talking through Component.Studio, showing off these beautiful faces of people that I love. And AJ was there too. Hopefully this has been a good primer. Hopefully you can see that it's like, we did some intimidating stuff towards the end, but that's once you've been using it for 6 months. I didn't even start messing with that after like the better part, until I've been working with it the better part of a year. And now I make everything in this. I make everything.
90% of my using Component.Studio is just for the simple stuff, right? It's quick iterations. Yeah. It's not putting in too much effort. And most of the fancy stuff is just there to save you more time. Once you're willing to put in the time to learn those fancier things, it can save you some time. But mostly it's just so much faster in every way than anything else I've used.
Yeah. I needed a game that just had a bunch of words. So I just put a bunch of words in from somewhere else that I had. Ooh. For some reason I made... Oh, that's right, yeah. So originally I had each of these filled up with words, and then each card had 10 words on it. I didn't end up needing that, but it's amazing that you can do this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Okay, well, that's all from us. Check out Component.Studio. Use the link in our bio. Check out our podcast. Check out, your groceries when you're at the store.
You can check out the Component.Studio Facebook group. That might be relevant for you. So a lot of people have asked a lot of questions in there, and JT's pretty active, so if you have questions, he might be able to help you. But do your due diligence and check the help menu first. Yeah.
The game crafter, this is how you export to there. We mentioned it earlier. You can also say what to export. So I can be like, I don't want any of these, and I don't need backs. It's so flexible. Yeah. My main use case for this is not my main. The initial appeal for this was like quick iteration. I'd be in a playtest with my co-designer Alex, and he'd be like, we need to change all these numbers. And I'd be like, give me 2 minutes, click, 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 import, done. Whereas like before this, it would have taken half an hour and we probably wouldn't have done it that day. And it would have like, I design it at least twice the speed because of this, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone. Hope you enjoy, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye everyone.
Bye.